Hello, and welcome to another of Mr. Bench's book reviews. What's in the box today? Ooh. Got it open. Oh, here it is. Tales from Beatrix Potter. The original and authorized editions by Beatrix Potter. New colour reproductions. There it is. It's a lovely little book. I'm not sure which tales it has. This is a bit of a throwback. The very first review on this channel was Beatrix Potter, Peter Rabbit. Probably her most famous. So I won't do Peter Rabbit today. Let's see. It has four. It has the Tailor of Gloucester, the Tailor of Gloucester, and three others. Let's do the Tailor of Gloucester, page 9. Let's get into it. The Tailor of Gloucester. Now there's a picture. That's not of an animal. Normally these are about animals. That's of people who seem to have had their clothes tailored nicely. There's possibly some sort of feline in the picture, but I don't know what kind of animal the tailor is. Let's find out. Gloucester. Oh, it's assumed to be about a human after all. But maybe he keeps animals. Let's see. In the time of swords. Oh, someone has. I got this out of a library in Germany, in Berlin, and a German has written in pencil some German translations of some words that they probably didn't know. But I'll try not to let that distract me too much. In the time of swords and periwigs, and full-skirted coats with flowered lappets. That's actually quite useful for me because I don't know what the word lappet means, but our German previous reader has said that that means lap or something similar. With flowered lappets, when gentlemen wore ruffles and gold-lace waistcoats of poudre soie and taffeta, they'll just be materials, I imagine, there lived a tailor in Gloucester. He sat in the window. He's kind of sitting in the window in the picture. I don't really know if that's normal. To sit like that near a window rather than on a piece of sitting furniture such as a chair. And he sat in the window of a little shop. I mean, maybe it's so passers-by can see him tailoring and think, wow, got to get myself some threads or some ruffles, perhaps. He sat in the window of a little shop in Westgate Street, cross-legged, on a table, from morning till dark. Oh, so he's on a table. I thought it was the way the room was shaped. From morning till dark. It doesn't say what town. Oh, it's in Gloucester. Sorry about that. So Westgate Street, Gloucester. Good. All day long while the light lasted, he sewed and snippeted, piecing out his satin and pompadour, that'll be another kind of material, and lute string. Stuffs had strange names and were very expensive in the days of the Tailor of Gloucester. Well, that's quite true. I mean, we already had poudre soie, taffeta and pompadour. Those are strange names. But although they've capitalised Tailor of Gloucester there, so it's like the Tailor of Gloucester, like the King of England or someone. But although he sewed fine silk for his neighbours, he himself was very, very poor. A little old man in spectacles with a pinched face, old crooked fingers, and a suit of threadbare clothes. I don't know if having crooked fingers is very conducive to being a good tailor. Or maybe they've become crooked from all the tailoring, all the sewing. And he's very, very poor. I guess he doesn't price his clothing or his his tailoring well enough. He cut his coats without waste according to his embroidered cloth. There were very small ends and snippets that lay about upon the table. 2 narrow breadths for naught, except waistcoats for mice, said the tailor. I don't know if there's going to be a mouse that gets a waistcoat, because this is from the Peter Rabbit universe, so you're going to expect some anthropomorphized animals to come in at some point. One bitter cold day, well, clothes wearing at least. One bitter cold day, near Christmas time, the tailor began to make a coat of cherry-coloured corded silk, embroidered with pansies and roses, and a cream-coloured satin waistcoat, trimmed with gauze and green worsted chenille, must be another of these strangely named stuffs, for the Mayor of Gloucester. Oh wow, that must be quite an important job then. I don't know if Gloucester now has a mayor, but it did in those days. The tailor worked, and he talked to himself. He measured the silk and turned it round and round, and trimmed it into shape with his shears. They'll be like tailor shears rather than garden shears, I expect. Well, here are some animals. Now there's a picture of some mice. The table was all littered with cherry-coloured snippets. I think by snippet they just mean like the bit that's been snipped off. No breadth at all, and cut on the cross. It is no breadth at all. Tippets for mice and ribbons for mobs. For mice, said the Tailor of Gloucester. Not quite sure what he means by mobs there. These are pretty old, so some is tricky to know if the tailor is just gibbering inanely to himself or if he's just using perfectly. Well, there are three options: old-fashioned words that a normal reader would understand, tailor jargon, like, industry words. I mean, something like snippet you can kind of figure out, but I mean, not everyone's going to know what a ruffle is or a lappet, or just inane nonsense, made up words. Said the Tailor of Gloucester, when the snowflakes came down against the small leaded window panes and shut out the light, the tailor had done his day's work. All the silk and satin lay cut out upon the table. I don't know if he doesn't have any light source in his tailor's shop. Like he doesn't have any candles or anything. That's not a candle. And that's why he always just has to stop when it gets dark. I mean, he's very poor. Candles are known for being quite expensive, so maybe that's it. There were 12 pieces for the coat and 4 pieces for the waistcoat, and there were pocket flaps and cuffs and buttons all in order. For the lining of the coat there was fine yellow taffeta, we had taffeta earlier, and for the buttonholes of the waistcoat there was cherry-coloured twist. I'm just going to guess that's some sort of string, thread, whatever. And everything was ready to sew together in the morning. Well, it'll be whatever you make buttonholes out of, I suppose. And everything was ready to sew together in the morning, all measured and sufficient, except that there was wanting just one single skein, S-K-E-I-N, of cherry-coloured twisted silk. There was wanting, that means they were missing, so it was one they didn't have. Poor tailor, so he needs to go buy that then, I guess. The tailor came out of his shop at dark, for he did not sleep there at nights. Well, he didn't sleep there in the day either, but anyway. He fastened the window and locked the door and took away the key. No one lived there at night but little brown mice. They run in and out without any keys. Almost sounds like that's what the tailor's thinking, the way that's written, when he locks the door. So he took away his key. For behind the wooden wainscots, don't know what that is. Might be like the like if you have wooden floorboards, it could be like the wooden thing on the bottom of the wall, maybe. Don't know. Of all the old houses in Gloucester, there are little mouse staircases and secret trapdoors, and the mice run from house to house through those long narrow passages. They can run all over the town without going into the streets. You see there's a picture of a street here, so you can see the houses are very much next to each other. You can't see it very well in this out of focus camera shot, but they're kind of right next to each other, kind of like terraces. It's quite common for old English towns. It's quite low ceilinged. I don't know if that's of any relevance to anything. Or the tailor's just a giant. That's also possible. But the tailor came out of his shop and shuffled home through the snow. He doesn't look very giant. He's slightly hunched and he walks with a stick. Although often people, if they do grow to be of enormous height, they do get back problems. Because of just the weight of their body. It's hard to support. But I don't expect this guy's suffering from gigantism or anything. It's not been mentioned anyway. But the tailor came out of his shop. I mean, they said something about his crooked fingers, pinched face. They would have mentioned it there. And a little old man in spectacles. Okay, no, so he's quite small. So the tailor shop is small then. If a little man, even when hunched, is almost banging his head on the roof beams, then that's really a rather tiny shop. And he has to basically sit down cross-legged in it. Maybe it wasn't even designed as a place for people to stand. Maybe it was originally a kind of storage area and he just converted it into a studio. We shall see. I doubt we shall see. Anyway, he came out of his shop and shuffled home through the snow, just near Christmas time. He lived quite nearby in College Court, next the doorway to College Green. Next to the doorway would be a more modern way of saying that. And normally modern punctuation would not dictate putting a space before the semicolon there. But it does say the original unauthorized editions, so we would expect some things like that. There may be a more modern version with fewer of these antiquated terms and usages of punctuation. But I don't know. Anyway, and I also don't know the geography of Gloucester, but I expect College Court is actually quite near. I expect she did a bit of research. She probably went to visit Gloucester. Why was he living Westgate Street? Like, if you're going to mention the streets like that, you expect them to stand up to scrutiny. And although it was not a big house, the tailor was so poor he only rented the kitchen. He lived alone with his cat. It was called Simpkin. So we have had mice and cats. That's a potential for conflict. Often you're introduced to, I don't know if you know Romeo and Juliet, but there are these two houses, Montagues and Capulets. They're introduced fairly early on, possibly even in like this little speech at the start. It's quite famous, something about Montague and Capulet. So it could be that having mice and cats introduced in the first few pages is setting us up for some sort of battle or some sort of conflict of loyalty for the tailor. Like if he's friends with the mice and he has a cat called Simpkin, then he may have to pick a side at some point. We shall see. And all day long, while the tailor was out at work, Simpkin kept house by himself, and he also was fond of the mice. Oh. Well, that's basically meant that that's not going to happen then. Though he gave them no satin for coats. Okay. Meow. Meow is spelled M-I-A-W here, which seems very odd. But again, that's old-fashioned. Meow, and that's with a question mark, said the cat when the tailor opened the door. Meow. The tailor replied, Simpkin, we shall make our fortune, but I am worn to a ravelling. Take this groat. It's an old coin. Oh, they even put that in brackets for you, which is our last 4p. Okay, so a groat must be worth 4p. And Simpkin, take a china pipkin. No one knows what that is. Kind of rhymes with Simpkin. Buy a penn'orth, so that'll be a 1 penny's worth of bread, a penn'orth of milk, and a penn'orth of sausages. So that's a penn'orth of bread, penn'orth of milk, penn'orth of, and then you've got a penny left over. And oh, Simpkin, with the last penny of our 4p, buy me 1 penn'orth of cherry-coloured silk. They mentioned it earlier that they were missing a skein of silk. But do not lose the last penny of the 4p, Simpkin, or I am undone and worn to a threadpaper. For I have no more twist. That's in capitals. Seems quite, you know, like a big bad thing to be aware of. Keep your eye on the fact, on his twist levels, like if the fact he's run out of twist. And he's saying, like, I'm worn to a thread paper. This seems to be like a weird Tailorish way of talking. And he said, I'm worn to a ravelling. No, I mean, he's probably... It's like a metaphor from the world of cloths. You know, if your sheets go threadbare, or if your tights wear through. And I think that's why he's talking like that. I expect that's not just old-fashioned or gobbledygook. I expect that's Tailor-based metaphors. Anyway, then Simpkin again said, meow, and took the groat. I'm not sure why he always says it with a question mark, because really you'd want like a more confirmatory meow, saying, yes, I get what you have said, rather than, oh, I have no idea, I'm just a cat. But no, he's saying meow, question mark, and he took the groat and the pipkin. It seems to be a little china pot thing based on the picture, and went out into the dark. This cat, by the way, is not wearing any clothes. Often in the Beatrix Potter universe, at least in Peter Rabbit, they kind of dress up a bit. Peter has like a blue jacket and stuff. And then when he... they dress, whereas this cat is very much bare. The tailor, which is particularly weird given the fact he lives with a tailor, so you think he'd get his hands on some decent clothes. But maybe that's just the way he rolls. The tailor was very tired and beginning to be ill. Oh dear. He sat down by the hearth and talked to himself about that wonderful coat. I guess the idea is, the way saying how poor he is, worn to a ravelling, we shall make our fortune, as though this coat is going to be what absolutely makes him a fortune, I guess. It's like the best coat ever. It's like if he can do this, it could be career-changing, life-changing. It's kind of... But it looks like he might not manage to do it because he's run out of twist at a very inopportune moment, and now he's blowing 3/4 of his cash on sausages and milk and bread. So let's see. I shall make my fortune, there he is talking to himself, to be cut by us. Not sure what that means. The Mayor of Gloucester is to be married on Christmas Day in the morning, and he hath ordered a coat and an embroidered waistcoat to be lined with yellow taffeta, and the taffeta sufficeth. There is no more left over in snippets than will serve to make tippets for mice. I think he's just talking to himself, isn't he? Because hasn't the cat gone? Yeah, the cat went off into the dark, so he's just talking to the fire. But in quite a poetic way. Saying things like sufficeth. And snippets and tippets rhyme very nicely. Then the tailor started, for suddenly... Oh, started meaning like sat up. Was surprised. For suddenly, interrupting him, from the dresser at the other side of the kitchen came a number of little noises. Tip-tap. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip. Now what can that be? Said the Tailor of Gloucester. They've capitalised him again. He's really taken centre stage in this scene then. Jumping up from his chair. The dresser was covered with crockery and pipkins. Again, willow pattern plates and teacups and mugs. The tailor crossed the kitchen and stood quite still beside the dresser. Not quite sure of the... Oh, he only lives in a kitchen, apparently, doesn't he? So that's basically his room. Not sure where he sleeps, or has a bed in the kitchen. Or he just crashes out in this chair that doesn't look very comfy. It's not... I mean, it has arms, but it's more like a carver, like a dining chair with arms, rather than what you'd call an armchair. It doesn't look very upholstered. So you'd want a better bed than that if you could get one. Where were we? He crossed the kitchen and stood quite still beside the dresser, listening and peering through his spectacles. Again, from under a teacup came those funny little noises. We didn't know they were from under a teacup before. Before we just knew they're from the dresser, because from his perspective near the fire, it's from over there. But now he's at the dresser, now he can more precisely locate that they're coming from under this cup. That's quite cool. When he lifts the cup, he can even say, well, I'm not sure. Depends how detailed the environment is within that cup. Tip-tap, 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 tip. That's the exact repetition of the noises from earlier. "This is very peculiar," said the Tailor of Gloucester, and he lifted up the teacup, which was upside down. Well, it would have had to have been if things can be under it. It's very difficult to be under a teacup that's the right way up. But nothing wrong with telling us that. Out stepped a little live lady mouse. A little live lady mouse. Well, it's a nice alliteration, although the fact she fits under a teacup kind of means she's going to be little, and if she's stepping out, she's going to be alive. But we didn't know she was going to be a lady, and we didn't know it was going to be a mouse. And made a curtsy to the tailor. Don't know if that means she has to be wearing a dress, or if you can just curtsy like that. Then she hopped away down off the dresser and under the wainscot. And yeah, I'm assuming that's the board at the side of the floor. The tailor sat down again by the fire, warming. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It may be called like a wainscot. I don't know. The tailor sat down again by the fire, warming his poor cold hands and mumbling to himself. I don't even know if using poor there to mean impoverished, or if they mean just their unfortunate cold hands. Mumbling to himself. Their waistcoat is cut out from peach-coloured satin, tambour stitch and rosebuds in beautiful floss silk. He seems to be a bit delirious, like maybe this the pressure of this job. That's why he's just like talking out loud to himself. Was I wise to entrust my last fourpence to Simpkin? Well, he's asking himself that. 1 buttonholes of cherry-coloured twist. 1 just means 21. But all at once, from the dresser, there's a nice little picture of the mouse curtsying there, so she's wearing a dress. She's quite finely dressed, actually. And there's the teacup, which has now been turned the right way up again. But all at once, from the dresser, there came other little noises. Tip-tap, 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 tip. So they are other, but they are exactly the same, at least in writing, as the previous ones. This is passing extraordinary. Not quite sure what he means by that. I don't know if passing is, a bit like flipping or something. More vulgar. That's probably what he means. So it just means this is very extraordinary, but he's almost getting into expletives because he's so surprised. It said the Tailor of Gloucester, but I think these are aimed at children, or at least families, so you wouldn't want to put in anything too rude. Said the Tailor of Gloucester, and turned over another teacup, which was upside down. There are things, people have arguments about whether to put your teacups upside down or the right way up. I think some people think if you put them upside down, the air inside them gets a bit musty. And other people think that if you put them the right way up, bugs and such can get into them. But I don't know how the mice get into the upside down ones. That's not explained. Or it hasn't been so far. Maybe the cat, who's their mate, lifts them up for them. Because the cat can manage this pipkin, so it can probably manage a cup. Well, it can even manage a shop. Out stepped a little gentleman mouse and made a bow to the tailor. That's nice. The lady does a curtsy and the gentleman does a bow. This is a bit old-fashioned, but it's cute. I think we can say this is cute. He's got a blue jacket, a bit like Peter Rabbit. Obviously smaller. And slightly different cut, I think. And then from all over the dresser came a chorus of little tappings. Excuse me. All sounding together and answering one another like watch beetles in an old worm-eaten window shutter. Now that is a simile that means nothing to me. Because I don't really know what a watch beetle is, and I don't know how they sound in an old worm-eaten window shutter. But I guess they kind of go tip-tap, 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 tip. We had a pigeon that used to coo down the chimney. That's probably the equivalent sound from my childhood. And out from under teacups and from under bowls and basins stepped other and more little mice, who hopped away down off the dresser and under the wainscot. The tailor sat down close over the fire, lamenting. 120 buttonholes of cherry-coloured silk, to be finished by noon of Saturday, and this is Tuesday evening. That's not too bad. It gives you Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, half a Saturday, Saturday morning, and 21. So you got, even if you take the Saturday off, or just spend Saturday like checking, you only do 7 a day. And he works. Well, it's winter, and he doesn't have any light, so he has actually a very limited period where he can work. I don't know how many hours of daylight you get close to Christmas, but it can't be too many. It's almost the solstice. Bad time of year to be cutting it fine. Was it right to let loose those mice? Undoubtedly the property of Simpkin. Oh, he thinks Simpkin's just kept them as dinner for later. Maybe he doesn't understand the close bond that Simpkin and the mice have. Alack, I am undone, for I have no more twist. He doesn't have much faith in Simpkin, does he? I mean, you send him out to buy the twist, and then you just sit there moping about the lack of twist. But it's just the pressure getting to him, I guess. The little mice came out again, that's out from under the wainscot now, and listened to the tale. They took notice of the pattern of that wonderful coat. I don't quite know how that works. I thought the coat was back in the shop, so I'm not quite sure. They whispered to one another about the taffeta lining. Oh, maybe they're just listening. Okay, because he's explaining it. He's gibbering to himself over and over again. And they're like basically taking a mental note of what he's saying. That's what they mean by took notice of the pattern. They whispered to one another about the taffeta lining and about little mouse tippets. Ah, there. Greedy for tippets. As you would be. He has quite fine crockery, considering he's supposed to be very, very poor, but I guess most people have a few nice things, may have inherited them. And then all at once they all ran away together down the passage behind the wainscot. Oh, and remember, that's quite cool. We know that they can access the shop because it's close by, and we know that there are all these tunnels. So maybe they're off to the shop, gonna steal some tippets. Squeaking and calling to one another as they ran from house to house. They're not telling us what they're saying. I don't know if they're speaking human language. They can understand it, I guess, but we don't know human language. Sorry, English, Gloucestershire English. Or if they're just doing mice talking. It's not really said. Simpkin seemed to say meow. So I guess animals aren't really talking in normal Gloucestershire English here. Which is different. I mean, in Peter Rabbit, we're told the actual direct speech, like the mother. She says, "Don't get into trouble" or something. Watch out for. It says something like that, and it's written in. It doesn't just say she kind of rabbited at him. Anyway, back to this. Squeaking and calling to one another as they ran from house to house, and not one mouse was left in the tailor's kitchen, when Simpkin came back with the pipkin of milk. Oh, well, there the pipkin, we can see a bit better. It's a kind of jug. There you go. There you go, guys. Oh, so you take your own receptacle and you just get it filled up. Well, that's nowadays if you do that with your coffee, you get you can save like 50 cents or something. Maybe not that much, but you can get a discount on your coffee if you bring your own cup. So I don't know if they're doing it that way, so that you get it for a penny. And if they'd have had to pay extra if they hadn't provided their own pipkin. That's quite progressive. It's environmentally friendly. Simpkin opened the door and bounced in with an angry grrr meow. That's with an exclamation mark. Like a cat that is vexed, for he hated the snow, and there was snow in his ears and snow in his collar. He's wearing a coat now, actually, so he didn't have anything on at home, but he does wear a coat when he goes out in the snow. Snow in his collar at the back of his neck. He put down the loaf and the sausages upon the dresser and sniffed. That's the loaf of bread, the sausages. Remember, he was sent out to get bread, sausages, milk, and the twist, of course. "Simpkin," said the tailor, "where is my twist?" But Simpkin set down the pipkin of milk upon the dresser and looked suspiciously at the teacups. He wanted his supper of little fat mouse. That's mouse used a bit like beef or something. I want some mouse for my supper. Almost like the meat of the mice. Well, that's weird. I thought he was friends with the mice and he wants to eat them after all. And the tailor has unwittingly released them. So, but that does explain how they got under the teacups. It was Simpkin after all, but he wasn't just helping them hang out. He was trapping them. Simpkin, said the tailor, where is my twist? Twist in capital letters. But Simpkin hid a little parcel privately in the teapot. Parcel privately. What is that? That's the twist then. In the teapot now, rather than the teacup. There you can see it. It's drawn. He's like opened the lid and he's. I don't know. He's managed to do that privately, but maybe Tailor was distracted. And spit, oh dear, and growled at the tailor. That's very rude. Growling is a funny thing for a cat to do. I mean, he did it earlier, did he? No, meow, he said earlier, but growling normally associated with dogs, cats, what do I think would hiss? Though I don't really know. And if Simpkin had been able to talk, oh, well, there you go, that's nice. They explain quite clearly that he can't talk. He would have asked, where is my mouse? And that's in big letters. And again, there means the mouse. Like, where's my beef? Rather than talking about one specific mouse, because they obviously had several of them trapped. Alack, I am undone. So undone, it almost sounds a bit like, could be a tailor metaphor as well. Now you undo your jacket. Maybe. Unravelled was more obvious. But, oh, threadbare, or whatever it said. Said the Tailor of Gloucester, and went sadly to bed. Went sadly to bed. Just with this sadness, just took it to bed with him. Well, this is pretty harrowing so far. All that night long, Simpkin hunted and searched through the kitchen, peeping into cupboards and under the wainscot and into the teapot where he'd hidden that twist. So it was the twist. Because we weren't told earlier, he could have just spent it on whatever cats like some fish or something. But no, so he did get the twist. He's just trying to withhold it until he gets what he wants off the tailor. But still he never found a mouse. Though he must know that they run all over town. Whenever the tailor muttered and talked in his sleep, Simpkin said, meow gervsh, or something similar, and made strange horrid noises as cats do at night. Yes, that's more cat-like. For the poor old tailor, here is poor again, was very ill with a fever, oh dear. Tossing and turning in his four-post bed, and still in his dreams he mumbled, no more twist, no more twist. So I didn't really mumble that, but it is given an exclamation mark. I don't know if you can mumble with an exclamation mark. Tricky. Maybe when you're asleep you do weird things. All that day he was ill. So okay, so that was Tuesday, so Wednesday he was ill, and the next day, so that's Thursday, and the next, that's Friday. So he's only got Saturday morning to find the twist in the teapot. So if he's ill, he should be making himself a cup of tea, and then he'd find the twist. Maybe he's even too ill to get out of bed. And what should become of the cherry-coloured coat? In the tailor shop in Westgate Street, the embroidered silk and satin lay cut out upon the table, 120 buttonholes, and who should come to sew them when the window was barred and the door was fast locked? Well, they have told us that the mice can access the shop without using the windows or the door. So that, but when they say fast locked, it just means like tight, locked tightly. Yeah, so they're kind of very much hinting that the mice are going to have something to do with it. That the mice may have come to sew them, possibly. I mean, they're giving you some clues, but that does not hinder the little brown mice. Oh, here they go. They run in and out without any keys through all the old houses in Gloucester, reminding us in case we'd forgotten. And there's a picture of a mouse with a very small needle and thread here as well. Out of doors, the market folks went trudging through the snow. Out of doors, absolute chumps. Trudging through the snow like poor old Simpkin, to buy their geese and turkeys and to bake their Christmas pies. But there would be no Christmas dinner for Simpkin. There's a stamp here that says US Army Library, Pattonville, FHA, APO, New York, 09279. So this has been lifted from a New York library. I say lifted. acquired somehow. I don't know what FHA means. But anyway, it somehow found its way to Berlin. I don't know if a GI took it with him when he was stationed here all those years ago. It's in very good condition, if that is. Oh, no, it is. Oh, no, it has seen better days. It certainly had some water damage. Let's have a little look. I mean, there have been US forces in Germany for decades. This was reprinted in 1988. Okay. Okay. I got it in an East Berlin library, if that's relevant. Probably. Could be. I mean, 1988 it would have been. There weren't many GIs walking around here in 1988. I can tell you. Certainly not. Not without doing it secretively, anyway. Where were we? There would be no Christmas dinner for Simpkin and the poor old Tailor of Gloucester. They've called him poor old quite often now. The tailor lay ill for 3 days and nights. Oh, we could work out when the solstice was, because if we know that he's getting married on Christmas Day, it's a Saturday, 25th, then yeah, it was the longest night of the year, shortest day, 4 days prior, on the Tuesday. So a terrible time to be hitting deadlines if you have no candles. Oh dear. Anyway, so he lay ill for 3 days and nights, and then it was Christmas Eve. So that's the Friday evening, if I've been following. And very late at night, the moon climbed up over the roofs and chimneys and looked down over the gateway into College Court, which is where he lives. There were no lights in the windows, well there wouldn't be, nor any sound in the houses. All the city of Gloucester was fast asleep under the snow. That's quite normal. I think in England that people go to bed on Christmas Eve and then they get up early Christmas morning for the festivities. And still Simpkin wanted his mice, and he mewed as he stood beside the four-post bed. So he's been sat there for 3 days without any mice too. There they've said mice rather than mouse. So it's a slightly different way of saying it, but it's the outcome is much the same. But it is in the old story. I don't know what they mean by that, in the old story. I don't know if it's just referencing the Bible. No, I doubt it. I don't know what that is. But it is in the old story that all the beasts can talk in the night between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in the morning. Though there are very few folk that can hear them or know what it is that they say. When the cathedral clock struck 12... Well, if Gloucester's a cathedral, it may be a city. I keep calling it a town, but I'm not trying to be accurate when I say that. When the cathedral clock struck 12, there was an answer, like an echo of the chimes, and Simpkin heard it and came out of the tailor's door and wandered about in the snow. He's gone out without his coat then. I mean, I know he doesn't like getting snow down his collar, but he must be pretty cold. From all the roofs and gables and old wooden houses in Gloucester came 1,000 merry voices singing the old Christmas rhymes, all the old songs that ever I heard of, and some of them that I don't know, like Whittington's Bells. I don't know if Potter just made that up. It's quite hard to make up a song you don't know. Or if she looked just a list of songs and picked one she didn't know the lyrics of. Whittington is obviously quite fitting. Dick Whittington famously had a cat, and this is a cat. So that's quite good. First and loudest the cocks cried out, "Dame, get up and bake your pies." It's midnight, isn't it? It's very early for a cock. "Oh, dilly, dilly, dilly," sighed Simpkin. No idea what that means. And now in a garret... Don't know what that means either. There were lights, and my German reader has stopped giving me clues. They must have given up. I don't blame them. I mean, this is hard enough for an English native speaker. They gave up quite early, actually, going back. They've not picked the best book, really. Or certainly they shouldn't have maybe gone with such an old-fashioned version. Anyway, in a garret, there were lights and sounds of dancing, and cats came from over the way. I don't know if that just means from across the street, or like from beyond, where you can see start coming over the horizon, as it were, around the corner. Sorry, horizons, lots of narrow streets, alleys. Hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle. We all know that tune. All the cats in Gloucester, except me, said Simpkin. Hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, all the cats in Gloucester except me, said Simpkin. I'm not quite sure what he's on about there. Hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle is the thing about the cow jumping over the moon. It's like a nursery rhyme. Maybe, he just means all the other cats are dancing and having a great time. That's what he's saying. They're singing Whittington's Bells, which he presumably recognises. It's a famous cat-friendly song. And he feels very lonely then. Poor Simpkin hasn't even got any mouse. Under the wooden eaves, the starlings and sparrows sang of Christmas pies. I could eat one of them. The jackdaws woke up in the cathedral tower, and although it was the middle of the night, the throstles... could be a bit like a thrush, just because the word's a bit like thrush. It sounds like a bird. The throstles and robins sang. The air was quite full of little twittering tunes. But it was all rather provoking to poor hungry Simpkin. Particularly he was vexed. That's old-fashioned. I don't even say particularly as he was vexed. In certainly the English that I speak. Particularly he was vexed with some little shrill voices from behind a wooden lattice. I think that they were bats. There's this I again. They had it like saying, I don't know what the songs are, and this I just coming in as the narrator. I think that they were bats because they always have very small voices, especially in a black frost when they talk in their sleep, like the Tailor of Gloucester. Okay, that's a bit of a weird interjection. Bringing in loads of new stuff there. Anyway, let's just carry on. They said something mysterious that sounded like, and this is written smaller writing because it's a little voice, a very small voice. Buzz, quoth the blue fly, hum, quoth the bee, buzz and hum they cry, and so do we. And Simpkin went away shaking his ears as if he had a bee in his bonnet. He's not actually wearing a bonnet. He's not wearing anything. But I guess he sometimes does. No idea if that is the first usage of bee in your bonnet, or if that's very difficult to say. It's possible. From the tailor's shop in Westgate came a... But I think they mean it literally. Like, it's shaking his ears. I think they mean it literally. They don't mean... Otherwise it's used metaphorically nowadays. From the tailor's shop in Westgate came a glow of light. That's weird. When Simpkin crept up to peep in at the window, it was full of candles. There was a snippeting of scissors and snappeting of thread. I'm pretty sure snappeting's made up there. And little mouse voices sang loudly and gaily. 24 tailors went to catch a snail. The best man amongst them durst not touch her tail. She put out her horns like a little Kylo cow. Run, tailors, run, or she'll have you all in now. Then without a pause, the little mouse voices went on again. Sieve my lady's oatmeal, grind my lady's flour, put it in a chestnut, let it stand an hour. Mew, mew, interrupted Simpkin. That's mew with an exclamation mark. Very different from the meow question mark we had earlier. Quite like that song, by the way. Durst, I believe, means does not dare to. Just in case you're wondering what durst means in this context. Mew, mew, interrupted Simpkin, and he scratched at the door, but the key was under the tailor's pillow. He could not get in. He could have got it from there and brought it over, though he may not be able to turn a key. The little mice only laughed and tried another tune. 3 little mice sat down to spin. Pussy passed by and she peeped in. What are you at, my fine little men? Making coats for gentlemen. Sorry, I've messed up the rhythm there, never mind. Shall I come in and cut off your heads? Oh no, Miss Pussy, you'd bite off our heads. Oh, sorry. Shall I come in and cut off your threads? Oh no, Miss Pussy, you'd bite off our heads. It's, Simpkin's a boy cat, but maybe they don't know that. Mew, mew, cried Simpkin. Hey, diddle dinkety, answered the little mice. It said they could talk in a language that humans would have a difficulty to understand, and I am having difficulty, even though I'm reading it. Hey, diddle dinkety, poppety pet, the merchants of London, they wear scarlet. Get away with that. Silk in the collar and gold in the hem, so merrily march the merchantmen. Don't know if a mayor counts as a merchantman. They clicked their thimbles to mark the time, but none of the songs pleased Simpkin. He sniffed and mewed at the door of the shop. And then I bought a pipkin and a popkin, a slipkin and a slopkin, all for 1 farthing. Farthing is a very small coin. I think it's a quarter of a penny or something. There's this old-fashioned money system they used to have in Britain. And that seems quite cheap then, if everything else was costing at least a penny. And upon the kitchen dresser, added the rude little mice. Not quite sure what that means. Are they referring to the twist? I don't know. Mew, scratch, scratch, scuffled Simpkin on the windowsill, while the little mice inside sprang to their feet, and all began to shout at once in little twittering voices, "No more twist! No more twist!" And they barred up the window shutters and shut out Simpkin. Well, he knows where the twist is, so that is rather foolish. But still through the nicks in the shutters he could hear the click of thimbles and little mouse voices singing, "No more twist! No more twist!" Simpkin came away from the shop and went home, considering in his mind. He found the poor old tailor without fever, sleeping peacefully. I don't know how he measures that. I mean, you can tell if he's stopped talking nonsense to himself. This is actually quite long, this book. Should we keep going? Wait a minute. I'm just going to check. I mean, I'm already on page 45. Oh no, I'm nearly... Oh no! It's missing some pages. Well, there's only one left then. Sorry, I'll read that, and then I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave you hanging for the ending. There we go then. I mean, they may have been placed in the wrong piece of the book. That can happen. Well, so much for being... Oh. Someone's pinched pages 37 to 44. How unfortunate. Anyway, I'll read page 36. And then I'll muse about what may happen at the end. Then Simpkin went on tiptoe and took a little parcel of silk out of the teapot. We know what that is. And looked at it in the moonlight, and he felt quite ashamed of his badness compared with those good little mice. When the tailor awoke in the morning, the first thing which he saw upon the patchwork quilt was a skein of cherry-coloured twisted silk, and beside his bed stood the repentant Simpkin. Oh, I thought he was going to go and give it to the mice, but he hasn't. "Alack, I am worn to a ravelling," said the Tailor of Gloucester, "but I have my twist." The sun was shining on the snow, and the tailor got up and dressed, and came out into the street with Simpkin running before him. The starlings whistled. It was Christmas morning. On the chimney stacks and the throstles and robins sang, but they sang their own little noises, not the words they had sung in the night. So not Whittington's, whatever it's called, the Ode of Whittington. What is it called? Whittington something or other. Whittington's Bells. "Alack," said the tailor, "I have my twist, but no more strength nor time than will serve to make me one." And that's where my pages have been stolen. I mean, he's going to say one buttonhole, but then we don't know. I mean, he has until noon, and he has sufficient twist, but he has very little time or energy. And he's a bunch of mice who seem to have done everything on this coat outfit without him. It seems to be what's happened there. So you've got your Christmas miracle. And because of the ability to talk, the cat could hear what the mice were saying and understand that this twist was very important. But yeah, a lot unresolved. I mean, we were due another 8 or so pages, and they had quite a lot of text on them. As you'll see, this is one of my longer reviews because of the length of the story, and yet it remains unfinished. So I do apologise for that, albeit through no fault of my own. Very, very different to the normal, to what I was expecting, I must say. I've only really read Peter Rabbit before, and that's very much focused on an animal, like his family, and his interaction. I mean, there's what's his name, Mr. McGregor, some sort of farmer, gardener person. But it's all very much from the perspective of the rabbit, and this kind of universe of animals that wear clothes and drink tea and things. Whereas this, you do have these mice going on, but it's it's called the Tailor of Gloucester. He's eponymous, and it's more about him, and then this kind of magic happens in the background via the animals. Although Simpkin has this kind of in between role because he obviously is asked to buy milk in Pipkins. I like that, the way they reuse the cup, as it were, like with nowadays, cut down on single-use plastics. Although I must say, the library I got this from today had a coffee machine that did dish out its cups in single-use plastics. So that's kind of wraps it up, doesn't it? So the circle is closed, and do join me again. Let me know what you thought. Check out the other Potter reviews on the channel. They'll be linked as they arise. And I'll see you again for another of Mr. Bench's book reviews. Bye bye.